Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We've got a seriously fascinating topic to dive into. We're going to be unpacking a pretty passionate critique of modern society, completely based on a source text called The Renaissance of Common Sense. Now, my goal today is just to lay out the author's arguments for you, clearly and totally impartially, so you can weigh these ideas for yourself. The text basically suggests that our society has drifted way off course from its foundational values. So let's jump right in and figure out exactly what this author is talking about.
The title itself is super provocative, right? The Renaissance of Common Sense. Now, the word Renaissance literally means a rebirth or a revival. So by kicking things off with this exact phrasing, the source throws out a massive hook. It forces us to ask, what would it actually mean for basic, everyday common sense to experience a literal rebirth in today's world? The implication there is honestly pretty bold. It's basically saying that common sense has gone totally dormant, that it's faded away and desperately needs to be revived. It really sets the stage for a deep dive into how we behave, what we value, and how those cultural values end up shaping our communities.
So, let's get into the first major theme of the author's argument, the current cultural state, and specifically, what is being celebrated right now.
The author hits us with a rapid-fire list of behaviors that seem to be dominating our culture today. According to the text, society has started rewarding a very specific and frankly negative set of traits. We're talking about a victim mentality, constant self-pity, and just endless complaining. Plus, the text points out this huge, widespread tendency to shift the blame onto literally anything else and always take the easy route. Now, I want you to objectively consider this perspective for a second. The author isn't just saying, hey, these behaviors exist. The real critique, the core of the argument, is that these behaviors are actively being celebrated. They're actually being encouraged and rewarded by our current culture.
You know what's really wild about this? It's how the author frames this societal shift. Avoiding effort and just being totally casual about everything have somehow become the new benchmarks for what we consider cool and normal. It's not just basic laziness anymore. The text argues that society has branded this specific avoidance of hard work as the absolute ideal. When taking the easy route becomes our cultural default, the author suggests we lose something incredibly vital. And really, that's the crux of the problem here, the complete and total normalization of complacency.
Okay, let's pivot to Section 2, moving directly from the author's critique of the problem to their proposed cultural solution. Making common sense cool, the proposed shift.
There is a huge contrast at play here, and it perfectly captures the core of the argument. On one side of the coin, you have the stuff the author says we absolutely have to ditch, the self-pity, the blaming, the casualness. But then, on the flip side, you have the Renaissance. This is the active, highly intentional shift toward doing the right thing, making sensible choices, and living a healthy lifestyle. The author is essentially demanding a total 180-degree turn in our cultural compass. We have to consciously stop rewarding that complacency we talked about and start actively promoting a completely new, healthier direction.
To really wrap our heads around this shift, we have to look at what the author actually means by noble attributes. We're talking about choosing a healthy lifestyle, eating well, getting to sleep on time, and just making the right decisions. And you know what's deeply fascinating about this list? Is that the author is rooting grand societal change in very basic, everyday personal habits. We aren't talking about some massive, complex political overhaul here. Actually, it's quite the opposite. The author is arguing that true nobility, the real foundation of a better society, starts with fundamentally sensible, daily routines. It's an incredibly accessible, grounded way to approach cultural reform.
Which brings us right to the author's main call to action. We need to make pursuing these noble attributes normal and a general expectation. It's not enough to just pat someone on the back for eating well and getting a good night's sleep like there's some rare exceptional outlier. The text strongly argues that these sensible habits have to become the absolute baseline expectation for everyone. If we actually want to fix that cultural state we looked at earlier, making the right choices has to be the new normal. It has to be exactly what we expect from ourselves and what we generally expect from everyone else around us every single day.
That brings us perfectly to the final part of the author's argument. Section 3. The ripple effect, from the individual to the next generation.
Let's trace this cascading chain of events, because it's super interesting how these individual choices scale up to a macro-level impact. Think of it like a giant domino effect. It all starts at step 1, with the individual pursuing those basic noble attributes. But that impact doesn't just stay in a bubble. Those sensible choices naturally elevate their whole family to a higher level. Then, a collection of strong families come together to serve the greater good of society. And finally, that solid society makes a lasting positive impact on the next generation.
The author is mapping out a mechanism where your personal, daily habits literally radiate outward to create massive societal change.
And all of this leads right to the author's ultimate vision of success. By following this path, a person doesn't just better themselves, they become a truly valuable member of society and make a positive impact on the next generation. So the goal isn't self-improvement just for the sake of it, right? It's entirely about creating people who are genuinely valuable to their communities. By adopting these sensible habits and firmly rejecting that culture of blame and self-pity, the text argues that we safeguard our culture for the youth. We're actively building citizens who actually contribute to a thriving society rather than just passively taking the easy route.
So, I want to leave you with a question to mull over. Based on everything this source critiques, what behaviors do you consider cool or normal in your own daily life? When you look around at your own environment, your own friends, your workplace, are you seeing the celebration of the easy route? Or are you helping to foster a general expectation of noble attributes? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. I really hope this breakdown leaves you eager to reflect a bit more on what a true renaissance of common sense might look like for you. Catch you next time.